So, at the time of filming this, we're just coming to the end of Pride Month, and I want to start by wishing well for everybody who has a personal stake in that. For some reason, of all the social justice issues, the mistreatment of people based on their orientation is one that leaves me itching with anger. I'm not sure why. It's But the idea of states or cultures taking an interrogatory or punitive attitude towards acts of intimacy just leaves me with a sickening dystopian taste in my mouth. So it's an area in which I'm guilty of sometimes being very emotive. Anyway, quite separately, the subject of human sexuality is staggeringly interesting. And I've always been curious as to why it is that the trait of homosexuality is so entrenched in the animal kingdom when at first glance it seems to be contrary to the aim of reproduction. So I went through some articles trying to see what the current state of thinking about this is. I'll focus on this article from The Conversation, authored by Professor Andrew Barron at the Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, entitled Homosexuality May Have Evolved for Social, Not Sexual Reasons. To summarise, it suggests that the extraordinary diversity that we see in orientation is a product of our being a hypersocial species. It says, in part, species such as the bonobo. How did I know the bonobo were going to make an appearance here? Look at them. Fucking sex-crazed bastards. Species such as the bonobo, that evolved for high prosociality, evolved to use sexual behavior in many social contexts. This results in an increase of sex in general, greater diversity in the contexts of sex, and an increase in gay sex. We believe something similar happened in recent human evolution. Gay sex and attraction may have evolved because individuals with a degree of same-sex attraction benefited from greater social mobility, integration, and stronger same-sex social bonds. This may sound counterintuitive, given gay people are socially marginalized, ostracized, and even criminalized in some societies. However, our argument addresses the early evolution of human sexuality, not how relatively recent phenomena like religion and religion-based legal structure have responded to sexual minorities. And they go on to provide some supporting data. Many studies since the pioneering research of Alfred Kinsey and colleagues have emphasized that sexual minorities occur across all cultures, and the levels of gay and bisexual people in populations have been quite stable over time. Our hypothesis predicts that bisexuality and people who identify as mostly straight should be more common than people who identify exclusively as gay, and this is the case, apparently. Recent genetic analysis confirm hundreds of genes influence sexuality in complex ways. Right, so that's a good thing to think about, how it is that sexual behavior is evolved from many different sources of influence. We quite randomly inherit half of our genes from each parent. Each parent's genetic makeup is unique, so it would be highly unlikely to find two people with exactly the same set of genes influencing their sexuality. As part of the conclusion, the article says, we believe sexuality is a highly complex trait interwoven with sociality, attraction. I will come to this in a bit. We think asking how gay sex and attraction evolved is asking the wrong question. A more useful question is to ask, how did human sexuality evolve in all its forms? Well, I'm reluctant to say that there are such things as bad questions in this area, but I see the article's point. I think there may be something further to this, although what I'm going to say is there's zero chance that it's original. I'm sure that other people have thought of it before and are authoring papers and may have already dismissed it at the time of recording. But I want to say that it's and this doesn't contradict the article. It's just kind of a slight reinterpretation. It's less that orientation is driven by social impulses rather than sexual impulses, because depending on how we understand that, there's a danger that we put sex in the wrong part of the equation. Rather, I would suggest the way to look at it is that the sex impulse is at the root of social behavior and is expressed by social activity, in which, especially when we're young, there are more opportunities for varied types of people to sexually imprint on us. I'm saying that when a teenage boy who is maybe as hetero as John Wayne puts posters up of Jim Morrison or Jimi Hendrix, that boy is expressing a sexual parasocial relationship to those men. I'm saying that regardless of your orientation, when you make friends with someone, there is, in some part of your brain, unbeknownst to yourself, or maybe knownst to yourself, the feeling that you want to fuck them. Yep, you do. You want to fuck them real bad. No, I'm serious. I mean, yeah, I'm no expert, but I think this hypothesis has got legs because it explains a lot, and it depends on very little assumption. Merely the assumption that sexuality is at the fundament of our behaviour, which I think most people would tend to agree with. Anyway, I'll come back to this subject because it's very, very interesting. I will leave you with this thought experiment. Take an honest look at your circle of acquaintances, right? If you're lucky enough to have a circle of acquaintances. Now put them in a row, 1 to 10. 1 representing the least desired social encounter, and 10 representing the most desired social encounter. Now, again, being as honest as you can, transpose onto that row how you rate those people in terms of desirability. Okay, thank you so much for watching. See you next week.